Well, shoot. I don't even know what I got myself into today. What? Good afternoon, YouTube. Today we're gonna work on an old rototiller that I just touched the spark plug and it was totally loose. Probably don't help with the compression any. But like everything I work on, it's somebody else's junk, and this thing has an awesome story behind it. So this thing belongs to a friend, and the motor blew up on his rototiller. And the motor that's on here now, a friend had bought me a rototiller to work on in 2004, like yesterday. And so he brings me this rototiller. I get it running because it had been underwater in a storm. And we get to looking at it. I got the motor running right away, but it wouldn't drive. It wouldn't, rototill. Nothing worked. So we took it all apart, separated the motor off of the body, and then it's got like a little clamshell, which you can see here. It clamshells, and all of the guts are inside of this thing. Well, when I get the clamshell separated, it had been taken apart before. And we've talked about farm fixes. So they put a little bit of household caulk in there and then sealed that bad boy back up. And guess what? House caulk was not farm ready. So the whole transmission, the whole gear case, everything was one solid chunk of rust. I mean, no amount of coke or diesel in the world was going to free this thing up. So I cut my losses. I told old boy, I said, hey, we're friends, but this is junk. And he was like, well, I don't want it back. So I took the motor off and I put it on the shelf in my garage in 2004. And let's fast forward a little bit. I threw the rest of that rototiller away. Nothing was savable. It was one big solid chunk. So in 2000, let me see, we're in 25, 3 years in would be 22-ish. So in like 2021, I'm talking about selling my house, which means I call all my friends and anything that's hanging on the wall that you want, freaking, let's make a deal. So my one friend comes in and he goes, well, I need a motor for my rototiller. So, and this was, again, 2021, 2022. I said, hey, I've got this motor sitting on the shelf. It ran like $1 million. Take this and put it on there. And then I washed my hands of the whole thing. Done. See ya. Post. And now we fast forward again to 2025. And my friend, and I'd forgotten about all of this. My friend calls me and he's like, hey, bro, will you look at my rototiller? I said, yeah, man, that's no problem. And he brings it to me, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, that ain't the motor that came on that thing. He goes, yeah, I know, it's the one you gave me. He goes, it don't run. So I give her a little psh, psh in the carburetor, fires right up and idles perfect with the crap that was in the tank. Ran perfect. So he takes it back home. Well, that was all it did. So he brings it back and he's like, nah, it don't really run. I don't know what you did, but it don't run. It won't rev up. And then he was like, sometimes I can get the motor to run and it'll idle, but it won't do nothing else. So now, a couple of weeks ago, I went out to research another show that I've yet to film. I'm still waiting for some permissions. But the guy was working on the exact same rototiller. The exact same one. And he was like, my daughter's son bought this thing. They used it one time. It quit and would never run again. So I'm like, hey, I said, I'm trying to gain a little favor with him, and we were having fun. We were talking, so I had time. So I said, well, let me take a look at it. And I get to looking at it. Next thing you know, he's handing me wrenches. He had all that shit right there. So we pop the carburetor off. We pop the tank off. He runs the tank out, rinses it out. We hit the carburetor with some air. We pour some fuel down in there. She's got fuel flowing now. So I'm like, there's no reason why this thing won't run. I said, these are the simplest things on the planet. So we put it all back together, and it don't run. So I'm like, well, dang, and I'm playing with it, and I'm like, well, this is clear, that's clear, it's got gas. I said, that's the only things. And then one time I accidentally pulled it over, and I had my finger on the governor. Boom, starts right up, runs like $1,000,000. So I'm sitting there, I got the motor running, and I'm revving it with the governor, and it runs like $1,000,000. So I'm like, look, I said, something's wrong with the governor on this machine. I said, I don't know a whole lot about the governors, but I said, let me go do some research, blah, 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 and I'll get back to you. So then that night, I knew that this was the same carburetor setup that was on this one, and I knew this one was unmolested because I knew the guy that got it. I knew he bought it brand new, and I knew I'd never taken the carburetor apart. So I get to looking at it, and there are several pieces missing. So someone had taken apart that really nice rototiller probably a couple times because there was a lot of stuff missing. But, so I got the other one running with no complaints. This one, still, however, and I didn't film all this, but yesterday I was out here playing with it a little bit, and it idles. And it idles good. And sometimes you can rev it up with the governor, But the first thing I got to thinking about was my buddy was like, when he had it running, it wouldn't rev up. And I'm like, well, I'll just kick at the throttle. And then it occurs to me, there's no throttle on this thing. Anyway, there's no throttle cable. So I'm like, well, that's weird. So I ran up to Tractor Supply, and I bought the generic throttle kit with all the crap that you could possibly need to do to hook up throttle to this machine. But yesterday, in playing with this thing, I realized that even if I run the throttle by hand and the governor by hand, this thing will not rev up. And it'll only run when it's on full choke, which for some of you means it ain't getting enough gas, or it's getting only enough gas to survive at idle, and that's it. So then I did what any great backyard mechanic would do. I would let it run in my garage for like 30 minutes on idle, hoping that the gas that it was sucking through would clear up whatever the hole is. Does that ever work? Almost never. So then I revved her up a couple times, and I did my ATV trick where I stuck my finger in the hole and choked her out a few times, hoping that it would draw enough vacuum to suck whatever that thing is in there through. Folks, a 5 horsepower motor don't have a lot of vacuum. It ain't happening. So that's where we are. So now tonight, we got to pull the carburetor off. The tank is crusty, even though I just filled it up with some really great fuel. So I'll probably drain the fuel out, rinse the carburetor, and scrub it out as best I can. And then I'll put the same gas back in it, but I'll pour it through a sock or a coffee filter or something to get the chunks out of it. And I'll blow the carburetor, and I'll do my little wire trick to the bottom of it. And then this bad boy should run, because the motor, when it runs really good. And while I had it in the running stage, I had it up on blocks. I used my cheap blocks. I got wood under this end, and I used the safety drag on this end. So I had everything up in the air, and then I was just banging the shifter back and forth, checking forward, reverse, and the tines. And all of that stuff works really good. I made a huge mess with it. But so for tonight, and it's embarrassing that I didn't know that the spark plug was that loose, because that would have probably made it run a little better too, and maybe I could have pulled enough compression, I don't know. But at this point, we got to pull the carburetor off. We got to be way more careful about all of these pieces. And then I'll get this one running, because I got to get it out the door. I've got a very and this is a lot of talking, y'all. I ain't gonna kid you. Not so much working, a lot of talking. But I've been out there beating the fences for vehicles because it's a will it start channel. That's what I want to do. I want to do will it starts. But you know, nowadays with all the shady people and everybody's trying to scam you for a nickel, it's really hard to roll up to somebody and say, "Hey, do you care if I walk out there in the tall grass and start that vehicle?" And they're like, "Why?" Well, someday you may want to sell that vehicle and you'll be able to, and they always, when you try to sell something on Facebook Marketplace, they're like, "Oh, I need more pictures. I need a picture of this. I need a picture of that." So then my sales point would be, "Hey, I will go out there, I'll video the whole thing, I'll video it running, I'll drive it forwards and backwards 10 times, whatever. I won't charge you a dime." Because all this is on me right now, and that's explaining, not complaining. I got a Navy buddy, that's what he always tells you. He's like, "Bro, I'm explaining, not complaining." So, but to make a long story short, I've been in a lull. I have a whole bunch of stuff to fix for people, but just it's not flowing to the house real good. I've got a huge project sitting right on the other side of the wall from me here that has been one roadblock after another, and I literally mean that. In fact, I'm going to grab you guys out of here real quick, and then I'll kind of walk you out here and show you. But right here is a giant stack of tires. We'll do it like that. And go through the door here, get outside. And some of you have seen this trailer in some of my other videos. So my biggest goal was to get the deck painted so that I could get it back outside, because the deck was horrible. And every bit of the way, a week or so ago, I was gonna publish the video, and I was gonna do these wheels, you know, and do the brakes. But when I pulled the wheels and the drums off, there was nothing in there. I mean, absolutely nothing. So then I'm like, well, crap, do I got to buy 3 wheels? Because all 6 tires on this thing were bad. So I'm thinking, I go buy them 6 tires, which I bought. I'll go spruce up the brakes, spruce up the grease and the bearings, and put this bad boy right out the door again. And it didn't work out like that. So then I come around and I'm like, well, dang. I said, I got to figure out the other side then. And then the other side, same drill. Only two of the axles in this case had brakes in them, and one was totally clean inside. So now I've ordered all new backer plates, and so they ain't gonna come in for like another week. So the project just keeps going from stall to stall to stall. So, and this trailer had been, I don't want to call it an accident, but the Swan shakers have been damaged also. And then when my friend that's helped me weld all of this, and folks, I have welders, okay? I can weld, but I'm not a welder. I'm a grinder, because I weld out a big ass blob and then I grind it smooth to make it look good. But my friend, he's a welder, and he can make that stuff look good, and he makes it look simple too. But anyways, so I found a crack in the frame, and when I told him where the crack was, he was like, "Oh, I gotcha." I'm like, whoa, what, bro, huh? He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Let me tell you." He says, "It's on the passenger side too, ain't it?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "The damaged suspension components, they were on the passenger side too, right?" I said, "Yeah." "How do you know that?" He says, "Well," he says, "here's what happens." He says, "When you're making a left-hand turn, it's always wide and deliberate. But," he says, "when you get into some place and you're pulling out, you're always turning out into the closest lane, and they always run the passenger side wheels into the ditch. And then when you hit the ditch, the wheels drop off into the ditch, and then the beaver tail drags on the ground, and sometimes it lands on the pavement or the concrete or whatever, and it's a solid boom. And then you put 20,000 pounds on top of the boom, and that's what tears everything up." So I got it. And none of that is what brought us here today. So we're going to get back to pulling this carburetor apart, and we'll see what happens. But I'm pretty sure I'll be able to make this bad boy run, because the motor does run good. I just got to get that little speck of dirt out of the jet so that it can pull enough fuel to rev up. So give me a couple minutes. I'm laying out some tools and we'll be ready to go. All right. So while we're looking at this, so this thing basically, there's 2, 4, 5. There's 5 bolts that hold the carburetor to the gas tank. There's 1 bolt down here that holds the gas tank on, and then there's 2 bolts that holds it to the motor. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull all of that off and then see where it goes. So the best part of this is that all of this stuff is pretty simple to get to. Try not to block the shot. I'm sorry about that. All right, so we got a couple of them out, and then the choke is hanging free. Until it's not. All right, well, I can't get that one loose. I mean, it's loose, but it won't come out. So now we're gonna do our handy dandy start Torx machine, and we're gonna crack this one. And the other thing that's really cool about working on these versus car engines and stuff is that nothing has more than about 10 or 15 pounds of torque on it, so you can always get the bolts out pretty simple. On some lawnmower engines, I mean, they either work or they don't. I mean, you can get on there with a wrench and it just snaps clean off, and there's no really thinking about it. You either know or you don't. So we got one more bolt to do here. Let me see if I can adjust this just a little bit. Oh yeah, we got that. Piece of cake. And one of my buddies got on me the other day. This one's a Ace Hardware ratchet. But I was using one of the Kmart cheapos, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing filming crap with a Kmart cheapo?" And as a football coach or anybody that's running a team, you got to know the weaknesses of your team. And when you're working on something that only has 5 pounds of torque on it, the Kmart guy stays on the bench the whole year, and when you get a 5-pound job, you need to let him play. If I got something that I'm going to put a pipe on and stand on it, I'll probably break out my snap-on. But if it's simple, give the Kmart guy some love.
Yes, sir. All right, that might be a problem. Did you feel it with you? Is it going on there? Maybe what happened. Couldn't handle it. Oh boy. I was sitting there pushing on it.
That's always good when you're shaking something like that and a wood screw falls out, and this thing don't take wood screws.
Do what?
So that, I don't know what to say about that. We probably won't reinstall the wood screw. All right, so we're gonna change our angle here a little bit. All right, that looks really good, but in all the preparation, I forgot the wrench that was that size. So give me a minute, I'll be right back. All right. So we're just gonna take, and we got one bolt left here, and then the whole thing will fall apart in our hands. I always love these because, like that ATV that I had to put the starter in, you can only get just a fingertip in there, and the bolt will only turn like a 1/16 of an inch, and it'll probably be like a 3-inch long bolt, so it'll take you a week to screw it out. But we'll get there. You just have to have faith in the process, and we're almost there. Let me just block this for a second because I can get a little bit better. Oh, I think I heard it click. There you go, folks. All right, it fell down inside, which is what you really wanted. The other thing is, I hurt my back like a week ago, so I brought in the ATV to prop all of this up so that we could work on it from a raised solution. So now, I think I had to have a yellow nut driver to pop that one off, and then I got to pop this off. So not the recommended approach, but it worked. So I got that one off. Now,
you can see this, and it's probably a little bit better wrench than what this one. I believe this right here will work. We're gonna get and try to get that fuel filler on and see if that works.
That's what you got to love about a newer model. So in this one, everything is mounted on the gas tank. So I'm going to take and all right, there was a wire on the bottom. The sad part is I knew about that wire on the bottom from working on the other guys.
Did film this, but we pulled the fuses out and they were blown. He got 2 more, and once we started,
Okay.
they immediately blew.
So that's the gas tank.
We're getting fuel through it now.
We're going to set that down where it can be contained.
The tank pushed it through, got the filters changed. I believe the trouble is the injector pump, the computer's not turning on. There's about 6 of them. Every one is stupid.
All right, and that's your carburetor. Give me 1 minute. I'm going to reset this camera so that we can look at this a little bit better. And then
For no reason. We dumped 2 cans of starter fluid in it for no reason. We put some
There we go.
transmission fluid in there for no
All right,
reason.
hold on one second. Let me replace this so that we can see.
It's gonna be right there, no ECM. But as you seen earlier in the video.
Hey, good afternoon, YouTube. Deke here, back with D-Fixin', and it's day 2 on this rototiller. I say day 2 like it was a long time, but I only get a little bit of time every day to play, so the days go by pretty fast. But yesterday when we left off, we had pulled the carburetor off, and I was drying this off, and the jet was totally clogged. I don't know if you can zoom in enough to see that hole right there, but the hole was totally clogged, and I had one heck of a time finding the right wire to go through it. Usually that's a pretty fast deal, but today it was not. So I have my trusty fits every carburetor known to man, except for this thing does not work on the 5 horsepower rototiller. So I had to break out my list of wires for cleaning welding heads, and I was able to get a couple of them in there and give her some ribbed action. And I got her cleaned out, I blew her out, I rinsed her out, and then what happened off of camera, I took the gas tank outside and rinsed it out with water and then left it sit all night. You really ain't gonna be able to see in there, but it's still rusty. But I think as long as he, you know, puts some fresh gas in it, runs the gas out of it, which is gonna be hard, because eventually when you're done with this thing for the year, you're just gonna have to turn it over on its side and spill it out, I think. That's probably the best way, or fill it all the way to the top. And then it had some of the 2004 gas still in it. And then I threw some 90 octane ethanol free in on top of it. And I tried doing it with the camera, but there is an obnoxious amount of dirt in the bottom of this that the camera just will not pick up. So I may try and pour some of this back in the tank, but the bulk of it is unusable because of all the dirt in the bottom. So in fact, this whole bucket may just become a parts cleaner for something else, because this is some pretty rough stuff. So now we're back to the reassembly. So, like I said, this was the main hole. So the way that I think this carburetor works, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, is when the motor's running, the vacuum or the vibration coming off of this creates a movement in the diaphragm, and maybe it burps some air down this, and then the air makes this thing suck fumes out of the out of that little cutout in the tank, because I played with it and there's just absolutely no way to get liquid gasoline up that high. So I'm kind of thinking that's how it works. And then I told you that I was working on one of these with somebody. Ooh, man, you just missed that. But a whole bunch of dirt just came out of there. But that's the fuel filter, I guess. So this, on that other rototiller I was working on, this was missing, as well as this L-shaped bracket and this spring which holds the man, I'm having a bad day, that holds the governor ready. So we're gonna go ahead and start putting this back on. I'm gonna have to play with it a little bit because I don't exactly remember how I got it off. I mean, I do, but it was a lot of wiggling. So we're just going to take a minute. We're going to lay our bolts back out. We know that that's going to go, we can put that on last. We know that the tank is going to go on there first. So that's going to sit on there, something like that. This will go in the upright position and be on here. All right, so now this part of it, so this part of it runs this part up and down. All right, and then this spring will go down like that. My other rod goes on the end right here. That came straight up, so it's like that. Okay. Now we got to reinstall the kill switch. All right, so the kill switch is back on, the rods are back on. This is hooked back up. Yeah. Alright, we're gonna adjust this. You know, when I'm doing this, the camera never wants to adjust. I hate that. Okay, so now the gas tank is on there. We got one more rod to hook up. And then this thing will be back to family-friendly TV. And we got busted. So taking it off, I was able to cheat part of this. And rather than go look for a yellow nut driver, we're just going to use the ratchet and spin it off so that I don't have to say no bad words, you don't have to hear no bad words, and we can keep that A1 family-friendly rating. And then we're just going to put the bolt right back in it. Alright, now comes my favorite bolt, the bottom one. You can snug it in there with a wrench, but you got to be able to fit it in there with your fingers. And this bolt is not family friendly. See that? I dropped it twice with no bad words. You can get a medal for other things, but and we've lost a bolt. When you get old and sometimes you need glasses, gosh bless it. All right, here we go. Now all I'm doing is just finger tighten all of these in right now until everything is happy, and I can wiggle all the connections to make sure that everything is going to work the way that we think that it should. I love these ones that you can only get just your fingertips on, and then it only turns, you know, a quarter of a turn. All right, I think we just made it past something. Must have been a burr. Oh, I just got another delivery. I got to step off for a second, so I'll be right back. Okay. We just got a couple screws left to put back in this thing. I'll find the right size screwdriver here, or Torx head, I'm sorry. Give everything a little shake. Make sure we're not binding all up. Okay, so there was basically 4 screws that hold the carburetor to the gas tank, 2 screws that hold the intake to the you know, this is why you gotta love working on garbage. Okay, so as I'm tightening those up, there was a small bind in the choke piece, and that bugger just snapped clean off. So now you got a manual choke. I can't catch a break some days, but all of this is put together. This is all working. This is all working. That's tight. We need to look at that. That's tighter than it was. All right, I hate these things officially. Oh, okay. So it's free, and then when you pull the throttle up, it jams are wide open. So now we know. All right, so at this point, I just got to tighten up the carburetor. But you know what? If you put this piece back on there, it makes it really hard to tighten that bottom bolt, in case any of you were wondering. So note to self, we got to do a little bit of rework. We got to figure out carburetor parts. I need to go into town again and see the carburetor guy to get this little, this bolt and this, oh, hold on. I need to get this bolt and this bracket and this spring for the other guy's rototiller. And, but we're almost at the point where we can put some gas in this thing and at least test it. So give me a minute to do a little bit of rework, and then we'll be right back. All right, and for those of you that thought that I forgot, that's on you. I did pull the plug out. It was pretty dirty. Gave her a couple of swipes with some sandpaper to clean her up. And I think we're pretty happy with it. Anyways, it's partially shiny now. And then we're actually going to put the spark plug back in. This time we're going to hit it with a wrench. You know, and the sad part, you know, somebody's like, well, you should have remembered that. Well, folks, the last time I played with this motor was 2004, so I'm sorry. But we're gonna give her a shot anyway, so we're just gonna give her a little snug. Oh yeah. Plug that back up. All right, and at this point, we have everything but gasoline and a choke. I still cannot freaking believe that that happened to me. But that's the story of my life. So, and this doesn't answer the mail. Oh, and that's why it broke. Is there any chance? All right, we're gonna go ahead and cut this up now. All right, so in all of their infinite wisdom, they gave me 3 choices. All right, I don't think that one's gonna cut it. This one makes the most sense. I like this one, but it's freakishly cheap. So this one's just a slider rule of plastic, and I got a feeling the first time you flexed on it, it would break. This one is not so easy to maneuver, which leads us to this one. Now this one, in all of this, we got to figure out how to connect it. But first, let me get a snippers and snip these so that we can see what we're playing with. All right. Then this thing will flick around and hit me in the face. Okay, so there we are. Both ends are exactly the same. So we believe why that's hanging up that little bit. I guess I gotta lube this thing on the bottom. I really like this one, but you would have to damage this end. I'm just not sold on it. All right, so right now it's in full speed, so we want this in fast. Idle, fast, idle. Slow, fast, slow, Does anybody else see a trend happening here that we don't like? Gosh, bless it. So what, I think we're gonna, I'll be right back. All right, we had to take the choke wire off, and then there was an extra throttle wire that we took off because it was set up for a different application. All right, and that stuff happens. But I'll get that in a minute. So I'm going to put a little bit of fuel in there. Seal up our gas can. Seal up this tank. Okay, so we still got to figure out where to mount the throttle, but throttle still kind of just works when it wants to, but there's a piece sticking underneath. So we've got her revved up. We've got our choke on. Started at about half throttle. Choke went flat. Okay, so I think for this video, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up right here. We got it running. We have some basic operation here, but I gotta do a little bit of greasing, and I gotta go online and do a whole bunch of research, figure out how I can buy just that little choke rod, because it's cheap plastic. And like all of this stuff, this piece wasn't brand new yesterday, and they get hot and cold 8,000 times. They get really brittle, and I didn't notice that I had to run the throttle differently, so I broke it. So that's totally my fault. I knew better, but you know, stuff happens. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up here. I appreciate you guys sticking in here with me. If you want to see more of this content, I got a couple more lawnmowers, people trying to get in before the season starts, and I got a big zero turn to change some belts and do some oil on myself. But like, subscribe, comment if you want to. Most people just come by and see me, but I don't have a huge following, so that's okay. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.